Hey folks, here OS Reviews. You're watching our video first look and a quick review of the OnReal Spy Mini camera. This isn't necessarily a fitting name for the product, however. I think of it more as a wearable camera in the same design language of something like the narrative clip or a number of other high concept, camcorders that you simply clip onto your shirt and it captures video throughout the day. Very similar to this. Now the retail price is around $97 on Amazon, which isn't really cheap, but compared to other full 1080p small portable cameras, the price point I think is fair. The packaging is pretty simple. You just have inside a hard shell carrying case to protect the unit, and what's really interesting is that they give you a large number of mounts and accessories for it. The most useful one, at least in my experience, is the simple clip, because as aforementioned, it transforms this tiny little camera into something utterly wearable. You can simply mount it onto your collar, onto a jacket, onto a shirt, and begin capturing videos and images by the click of a key or controlled using the app on your smartphone. So very handy. Furthermore, there are additional mounts. You'll see some of them have a kind of gel pad, and what you use these for is for mounting it onto a dashboard of a car, onto a surface, or onto a ceiling for recording video and looping video. Finally, there is even a magnetic mount. So what I mean by that is the back here is magnetic. So it sticks onto surfaces like metals really well. So if you want to pop it onto a car or onto a refrigerator, it can stick on without any problem. So a large number of these swappable modular packs which are custom for the camera. There's also a micro USB cable used for charging and power, and a quick start guide which you can use to download the proprietary app, as well as telling you a little bit more information about the status LEDs, which we'll talk about in a bit more detail later on. In terms of camera sensors, it's a full 1080p at 30 frames per second with a resolution of 8 megapixels and a wide-angle 120-degree lens, which is using the SONY IMX 179. So it's the same sensor found on the iPhone 5S, but of course it has a larger kind of fisheye lens to produce the wide angle effect. So the lens on here is technically stronger than on the narrative clip and on other kind of wearable clippable cameras that I've seen, because those tended to have not quite as powerful sensors, and they tended to also be a little bit more flush with the surface of the body, but this one is still quite lightweight and small. Otherwise, you can also of course take images up to full 8 megapixels, and the fact that it has Wi-Fi means that you can share and stream content directly using the companion app. So let's take a closer look at the design of the camera first. The frame is constructed out of a soft touch kind of rubber material, and the top here is where the lens is housed. You can see it has kind of a protrusion from the surface. It's about the same size, I would say, as a $1 coin. Those are a little rare, but it gives you a quick size comparison. The back features the company's logo. There is a lanyard strap, so you can hang it like a keychain even. The top here is the key that you tap on once to take an image, or hold down for a few seconds to start recording video. There's also a special 10-second video mode which you can continuously hold for 10 seconds and release for the video to stop. There are two LED status lights. One is used for power when it's running low, when it's turned on. The other is used for connection status. So for instance, when Wi-Fi is on or when Wi-Fi is off. On the other edge, there's access to the power key. You can tap on it once and it immediately turns on. I can also tap and hold to turn on the Wi-Fi feature separately. Using Wi-Fi will decrease the battery life, and without it turned on, I got roughly, I would say, an hour and a half of continuous full 1080p video recording before it was completely drained. So with sporadic images and snapshots throughout the day, it will last you, for a day to 3 days of continuous use without any real problems. But with Wi-Fi on, you only get about half a day because it's continuously streaming content over to the phone. The integrated battery again uses simply micro USB to charge, and it's charged up in under 2 hours. And on the side is the micro SD card slot, and you do need to provide your own since there is nothing that's built on in. So we talk a little bit about the clip here. It's actually pretty easy to use, and one of my initial concerns was that if you pop this in, it would cover up all the ports and buttons, but it's clever enough so that you still have access to everything. The clip's design actually feels fairly snug and secure, so I'm not worried about it falling out even as I was walking around. It also gives you a few ergonomic controls for instantly still accessing the shutter key and the video recording key without any problems. There's also an integrated mic on the edge as well for capturing sound. However, one problem that I did find as a wearable camera is that there is no gravity or accelerometer. What that means is it only has one orientation facing up, which is the one where the shutter key is located upwards. As a result, you can tell that if you have a shirt where you want to clip it on sideways, then you have to physically move the module sideways by popping it off of the shell and then changing the orientation yourself. So if your shirt doesn't have, let's say, a pen pocket on the top where you can just stash it in like this, and you're instead putting it horizontally where the zipper might close up on a jacket, then the video will be captured sideways. It's easy, of course, to fix in a computer just by reversing it in the software, but it's not as convenient or as smart. Another solution would be physically changing the orientation of the camera. So that is something you kind of have to keep in mind. There's only one orientation facing up in the video. Okay, so next let's talk a little bit about the kind of power and ergonomics. So again, the power key is the smaller one. If we just tap on it for 1 second, you see a small green LED, a beep, that means it's turned on. Right now this orange is flashing because the battery is getting a little low. I've been wearing this throughout the past day and a half and testing it out a bit more, but it can still capture a few more shots. I can instantly capture an image by tapping on this once. You'll hear a beep and a red icon. That means that the image has been captured, and it's pretty fast to capture an image. Here we have the app. It's called NeoMe, as aforementioned, and it again connects just using Wi-Fi. So pretty similar in terms of the setup process to any other security camera or any other Wi-Fi enabled camera that we've seen in the past. Again, there is a green flashing light that indicates that it's been connected and the power status is on. From here you can see, again, it does give you that fisheye lens effect I was talking about earlier, so it does have a fairly wide field of view. And what's also quite impressive here, again, is the fact that colors as well as the overall details are still present even under relative low light environments. So of course right now we are indoors and it's nighttime, but it's still capturing the image pretty well. So other things that we can see from this application is the ability to toggle between settings. So I can change the resolution of the video, I can change the record time, which is set to 5 minutes by default. The microphone level can also be tweaked. Resolution of still images, which is set at 8 megapixels by default. Geotagging is another feature that I can get through. Time to examine some of the video samples and image samples that I took with the camera. So let's start with this first one. And you can see it's recorded in MOV format, and it's recording at 1080p with 30 frames per second. This is outside in a pretty sunny day. I think that the takeaway is that there's actually a really good amount of detail. Right now this camera is clipped onto my shirt as I'm kind of walking around, as well as panning around, looking on this bus, looking outdoors. And what's impressive is that you can see there's not too much of a problem in terms of lighting. Even as you're focusing between different spots, there's not a dramatic shift between the contrast getting overblown or overexposed, even under these kind of difficult and changeable environments. So you can really tell that there's actually quite a lot of detail. The footage here, I would say, is definitely stronger than almost 99% of the other wearable small cameras I've seen, compared to things like pen cameras, cameras disguised into ballpoint pens, the narrative clip, etc. It's much better. And the part of the reason is, of course, the fact that the sensor is larger. It has a larger field of view, it allows more light to enter, so it is much more comparable to an action camera in performance, but of course the size is still much, much smaller. The only downside is really the stabilization. You can tell that, especially if you're moving or walking around really quickly, that there isn't any optical image stabilization, of course. So it's harder for it to mitigate those actions. So if you're looking for really stable footage, then perhaps you have to look elsewhere, since again there's no gimbal built in, which is expected. Taking a look at photos here, you can take a look at some sample JPEGs that I was capturing, and image quality is even more impressive than the video quality. So with images in particular, if we zoom all the way in, we can really tell that there's quite a lot of detail even in this kind of 100% crop. Images are sharp, colors are pretty accurate, and even in shade as well as in bright sunlight, it captures kind of these differences really well. So I'm certainly impressed with the quality of the images that I'm looking at. Performance really is quite good. For the small size, it captures a surprising amount of detail and accuracy in the colors. That's pretty much it as far as our review of the OnReal Mini Spy camera. Again, I think the word spy is a little bit misleading because it's more than that. It's not just something that can be disguised into a house and used for surveillance. It actually makes for a great kind of daily wearable camera just because the sensor is much more powerful. You can capture your everyday environments. Just simply tapping on one click allows you to instantly capture a image, and of course you can create pretty interesting projects as well as slideshows that way to really remember and see details that you maybe not even observe are happening in front of you, which makes it pretty powerful for vacation and for, again, traveling purposes. But beyond that, it's a good multi-purpose camera. You can mount it anywhere. You can use it for sports. It has a good wide-angle lens, and in that regard, it also competes with other action cameras. It's also quite affordable if you consider the price for that. Although it does not have a built-in screen, I think that the small size, really is a plus that perhaps makes more sense than you would realize, because an action camera weighs far too much to be clipped on or worn on a shirt without some type of more fancy and complicated setup. So you can check out more details about the OnReal Mini camera in our official written review, but for now this has been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.